The 18th of October, 1942, 11:47 hours. The South Pacific Sun is a hammer on black water. Aboard the heavy cruiser Aoba, Vice Admiral Genichi Mikawa scans a horizon he believes he owns. His task force 4 cruisers, 2 destroyers cuts through the slot, that narrow corridor between the Solomon Islands. It is a routine reinforcement run, a display of imperial power so commonplace it has become administrative. By every known rule of naval warfare, this is a secure transit. American naval power in the region is shattered. Its airfields distant, its pilots exhausted. Japanese naval doctrine dictates that daylight belongs to the fleet, and the fleet is here. Below decks, on the transport ships trailing in his wake, sit 4,500 infantry of the 38th Division. They are not combat, ready, they are cargo, sleeping, writing letters, confident in the warships that cradle them. Admiral Mikawa has every logical reason for this confidence. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. He has already handed the U.S. Navy one of its most crushing defeats at Savo Island, a night action that proved Japanese superiority in the dark, close-quarter fight. Daylight, he believes, offers only greater safety. American high-altitude bombers are an irritation, their patterns visible from miles away, their bombs falling harmlessly into the sea where his ships once were. His lookouts are trained for the silhouette of a B-17, the slow approach of a torpedo plane. What he cannot conceive, what his flawless doctrine has no category for, is what is being built for him in the sweltering, makeshift hangars of Henderson Field. There, American ground crews are performing what senior commanders call a field modification and frontline mechanics call a Frankencrime. They are taking the medium bomber, a tool for horizontal punishment, and forging it into something else entirely. Something designed for a single, surgical, and utterly insane purpose: to fly lower than physics should allow, and to saw a warship in half. The Japanese Navy's confidence is a fortress, but its architects have forgotten to design a gate against an enemy who has decided to stop knocking, and instead intends to dismantle the walls, bolt by bolt. The weapon is an affront to the established order of aerial warfare. It is the B-25 Mitchell, but not as any manual prescribed it. In the tropical heat of New Guinea and Guadalcanal, men with welding torches and a desperate fury are stripping away its very identity. They remove the glazed bombardier's nose, that delicate bubble of optics and calculation. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. In its place, they weld solid metal plate. Then, they breach it. Not with a single cannon, but with a battery of 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns. Each gun is fed by a belt of hundreds of rounds, converging at a point 250 yards ahead of the aircraft's nose. The mathematics are crude, terrifying, and beautiful. At 250 yards, the combined fire of these guns will deliver approximately 1,350 rounds of armor, piercing and incendiary ammunition per s-econd into a single shipping container. Sized area, the result is not an airplane. It is a 20-ton, twin-engine gunship. Its official designation is the B-25G. The men who will fly it call it the Commerce Destroyer. The mechanics who berth it in dust and oil smoke have a simpler term, the Scythe. Its mission profile violates every principle of self-preservation. It will not attack from the safe, high-altitude realm of the flying fortress. It will not make the long, predictable torpedo run. It will descend to wave-top height 50 feet. 20, lower and stay there. It will fly through the anti-aircraft fire, not over it. Its target will not be the ship's deck or its bridge, but its waterline, its engineering spaces, the very heart of its buoyancy. The tactic is born of repeated, bloody failure. Torpedo planes have been slaughtered by the curtain of steel thrown up by Japanese naval gunners. The United States Fifth Air Force, commanded by a grim, relentless general named George Kenney, needs a new equation. He finds his profit in a spare intense major named Paul Pappy Gunn. Gunn is not a theoretician, he is a welder, a pilot, a man who believes in solving mechanical problems with more firepower together. They author a heresy, and in the autumn of 1942, that heresy is given a target, the lifeline of the Japanese Empire in the South Pacific, the Tokyo Express, the convoys that sail with impunity down the slot. Admiral Mikawa's confidence is the bedrock upon which their entire strategy is built. Kenney and Gunn intend to prove that bedrock is rotten. The doctrine is the fortress for the Imperial Japanese Navy. It is an article of faith, refined through victory after victory. Surface vessels, particularly destroyers and cruisers, are sovereign in their domain. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Anti-aircraft defense is a geometric problem of lead and trajectory, a puzzle solved by discipline and volume of fire. A destroyer captain like Commander Tamechi Hara of the Shiger understands this calculus perfectly. His ship is a masterpiece of speed and aggression. His gunners are drilled to track high-level bombers, their shells blossoming in black flowers at 20,000 feet. They are trained for the torpedo plane's slow, vulnerable approach, a geometry problem, where the solution is to turn the ship's narrow profile toward the incoming wake and fill the sky with automatic cannon fire. The defensive concept is called the basket. Multiple ships weave and turn in concert, their combined anti-aircraft fire creating an impenetrable sphere of flak and tracers around the convoy. It is a dance of death for any aircraft entering it. It has worked at the Java Sea. It has worked in the Coral Sea. It is, according to every staff college textbook in Tokyo, reliable. This doctrinal confidence breeds a specific fatal blindness. Lookouts are conditioned to scan the skies above the horizon. Fire control directors are calibrated for targets moving at horizontal bombing speeds or the sluggish descent of a torpedo run. The entire system, from the admiral on the bridge to the loader in the gun well, is psychologically prepared for a war fought in 3 dimensions: length, breadth, and height. What the system has no mental category for is a threat that eliminates the 3rd dimension entirely, a threat that does not descend from the sky, but that emerges from the sea line itself, appearing not as a silhouette against the clouds, but as a distortion in the haze, a roaring shape that fills the porthole in the time it takes to blink. The Japanese Navy is prepared for an aerial duel. It is not prepared for a naval engagement where the enemy's ship is airborne, and its broadside is fired in a single sustained, horizontal torrent of metal. They have fortified the roof against hail. They are utterly exposed to the earthquake. The 16th of November 1942, the experiment finds its first live fire range. A lone Japanese merchant vessel, the Kashima Maru, is sighted off the New Guinea coast. It is not part of a mighty convoy. It is a test subject. 2 modified B-25Cs, their new noses blunt and menacing, skim the water so low their propellers kick salt spray onto their own windscreens. They are not flying. They are contour, chasing, using the ocean's surface as their shield from radar and lookouts alike. The Japanese ship's crew has no warning beyond a sudden, deepening roar that does not come from above, but from ahead. The attack profile is a brutal simplification of war. There is no bomb sight, no complex release calculation. The pilot aims the entire aircraft. At 600 yards, the world dissolves into sound and vibration. 8 guns fire as one. The muzzle flash is a continuous, strobing hell, light from the nose. Tracersinly, 1 in 5 rounds paint a solid, converging river of fire that walks up the sea, across the deck, and into the ship's superstructure. The effect is not an explosion. It is a disintegration. The .50 caliber rounds designed to pierce light tank armor do not detonate on the merchantman's thin hull. They are not flying, they are contour chasing. Using the ocean's surface as their shield from radar and lookouts alike, the Japanese ship's crew has no warning beyond a sudden deepening roar that does not come from above but from ahead. The attack profile is a brutal simplification of war. There is no bomb sight, no complex release calculation. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The pilot aims the entire aircraft at 600 yards. The world dissolves into sound and vibration. 8 guns fire as one. The muzzle flash is a continuous, strobing hell, light from the nose. Tracersinly, 1 in 5 rounds paint a solid, converging river of fire that walks up the sea, across the deck, and into the ship's superstructure. The effect is not an explosion. It is a disintegration. The .50 caliber rounds designed to pierce light tank armor do not detonate on the merchantman's thin hull. They are not flying, they are contour chasing. Using the ocean's surface as their shield from radar and lookouts alike, the Japanese ship's crew has no warning beyond a sudden deepening roar that does not come from above but from ahead. The attack profile is a brutal simplification of war. There is no bomb sight, no complex release calculation. The pilot aims the entire aircraft at 600 yards. The world dissolves into sound and vibration. 8 guns fire as one. The muzzle flash is a continuous, strobing hell, light from the nose. Tracersinly, 1 in 5 rounds paint a solid, converging river of fire that walks up the sea, across the deck and into the ship's superstructure. The effect is not an explosion, it is a disintegration. The .50 caliber rounds designed to pierce light tank armor do not detonate on the merchantman's thin hull. They saw through steel plate, piping, electrical conduits, and human bodies with equal indifference. They turn the wheelhouse into a cloud of splinters and blood mist. They ignite fuel lines, detonate ready ammunition, and methodically dismantle the vessel's ability to float, move, or resist. The ship is dead in the water within the first 7-second burst. The B-25s pass over without dropping a single bomb. They leave behind not a sinking ship, but a paralyzed, burning hulk being systematically unmade by its own internal explosions. The lesson is instantaneous and visceral for the American air crews. The guns are not for sinking. The guns are for killing the ship systems, its crew, its will. For General Kinney, watching the reconnaissance photos, the result is a tactical epiphany. High-altitude bombing requires 1,000 variables to align. They are shepherded by 8 destroyers veterans of night battles, commanded by Admiral Masatomi Kimura. This is not the Tokyo Express. This is a deliberate, powerful daylight statement of intent. It is called Operation 81. Admiral Kimura is a capable, by-the-book officer. His escort screen is dense, his destroyers positioned for optimal anti-aircraft crossfire. He has requested and received promises of fighter cover from the elite Tainan Air Group based at Rabaul. His plan is logical: use daylight to traverse the most dangerous stretch of the Bismarck Sea, under the umbrella of both his own guns and friendly aircraft. He believes the greatest threat remains the high-altitude B-17, a threat his ships can outmaneuver. He is wrong. The threat has already been catalogued. Allied coastwatchers hidden in the jungle mountains of New Britain radio the convoy's composition, course, and speed the moment it leaves Rabaul's Simpson Harbor. Every detail flows to General Kinney's headquarters. Kinney now faces a commander's ultimate test, believing in his own weapon. The modified B-25s exist. They have proven their savage effectiveness against a single undefended merchantman. But to commit them against a fortified naval convoy, defended by some of the best anti-aircraft gunners in the world, is to gamble the entire 5th Air Force's medium bomber fleet on a single, unproven tactic. He gives the order: every available aircraft is to be marshaled, not just the B-25 strafers, but their precursor skip, bombing B-17s, a -20 Havocs, and a swarm of P-38 Lightnings to hold off the Japanese fighters. The plan is a layered, coordinated annihilation. It must be. If the strafers fail, if they are shot down in swarms, the convoy delivers its army and Leh becomes an impregnable fortress. The date is set, the stage is the Bismarck Sea. Admiral Kimura sails with the certainty of doctrine. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. General Kinney attacks with the certainty of heresy. The 1st of March 1943, 22 o'clock hours, the convoy slips into the Bismarck Sea. Aboard the destroyer Shirayuki, Admiral Kimura allows himself a measure of satisfaction. The weather is turning low cloud cover, intermittent squalls. It is poor bombing weather to the American high-altitude bomber. This overcast is a shield. His ships are invisible from above. He does not know that this very weather is the final component in Kinney's plan. The cloud ceiling is not a shield for his convoy. It is a blindfold. It grounds the Japanese fighter cover from Rabaul. The Zero, a sublime machine in clear skies, is helpless in thick cloud. The umbrella of steel from his destroyers remains, but the umbrella of canvas and wire from his Air Force is neatly folded away. Across the water at dispersal points in Papua New Guinea, the 5th Air Force prepares for a new kind of mission. Crews are briefed not on bomb loads and altitudes, but on attack profiles and gun harmonization. The B-25 strafer pilots study ship silhouettes, learning to identify destroyer bridges, transport engine rooms. They are taught to aim for the waterline just ahead of both their bullets, walking up the side and into the ship's vulnerable guts. The psychological preparation is more critical than the technical. They are told to ignore the tracers, to see the flak not as a wall but as a path they must fly through. They are told in blunt terms that their survival depends on a single, unbroken act of aggression. The Americans know where he is, but the weather protects him. The high-altitude attack will be blind and ineffective. He orders standard evasive maneuvers, gentle turns to disrupt bombing solutions. His destroyers tighten their screen. Gunners stand ready at their 25mm cannons and 5-inch mounts. eyes scanning the cloud base. They wait for the distant specks of B-17s to emerge. What arrives is not what they are conditioned to see. The first wave is not bombers at all. It is a swarm of P-38 lightnings, sleek twin-tailed demons, slicing down through the cloud gaps. Their target is not the ships, but the few brave Japanese fighter pilots who have managed to scramble into the soup. In a series of brief, vicious dogfights over the convoy, the Zero's advantage is nullified. The P-38s, with their superior speed and dive, clear the sky. The convoy's aerial umbrella is not just folded, it is shredded. Kimura's confidence tightens into concern. The American fighters would not be here unless something more significant was coming. He signals for maximum anti-aircraft readiness. The deck of each transport becomes a tableau of tense anticipation. 7,000 soldiers, many seasick from the rolling swells, clutch their rifles and stare upward, waiting for the bombs to fall from the heavens. They are looking in the wrong direction. The sound, when it comes, is not the high-pitched whine of diving aircraft. It is a low, reverberating thunder that seems to emanate from the sea itself. It grows not from above, but from ahead, from the starboard bow, from the port quarter, from everywhere and nowhere. It is the sound of multiple heavy radial engines at full military power, their noise flattened and reflected by the ocean's surface. On the bridge of the Shirayuki, a lookout screams, not bombers, but aircraft low, very low. He points not at the sky, but at the horizon, where the gray sea meets the gray mist. Shapes are materializing. They are not descending, they are rising, emerging from the visual clutter of waves and rain like steel sharks breaching, their blunt, gun-studded noses already aimed at the heart of the formation. The Japanese anti-aircraft doctrine has no answer for this. The fire control computers are useless. The gunners must aim by instinct at targets moving at 250 miles per hour, flying below the height of their own ship's mast. The basket defense is designed for a sphere. This attack is a horizontal scythe cutting at the waterline. The lead element of the American attack is not the strafers. It is the B-17s flying at medium altitude through the cloud breaks. They are the anvil. Their purpose is not precision, but chaos. They employ a crude, terrifying tactic called skip bombing. They descend to just a few hundred feet, approaching the ships not from above, but from the side, releasing their bombs like stones skipped across a pond. The cylindrical bombs hit the water, bounce, skid, and slam into the hulls at deck level. The explosions are not geysers of water alongside the ship. They are eruptions of steel and fire on the ship. A transport takes a direct hit amidships. Its back breaks with the sound of a mountain splitting. The orderly convoy formation, the delicate dance of the basket, dissolves into a maelstrom of smoke, cascading water, and frantic, uncoordinated turns. This is the moment, this is the distraction. As the destroyers turn toward the new threat, their captains shouting orders to engage the fortresses, the true executioners arrive. They come in flights of 3, line abreast, so low their wingtips seem to brush the whitecaps. The first wave of B-25 strafers targets the escorts. History insists this is suicide. Charge a destroyer, a ship designed expressly to kill aircraft. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Head on. But these are not conventional aircraft. They are coming from a dimension the destroyer's design philosophy ignored. The destroyer Ratio turns to present its narrow profile, its gunners frantically depressing their 25mm cannons to their maximum downward angle. They are firing almost straight down at the water. Tracers arc out, brilliant and slow, seeming reaching for the oncoming shape. It is like trying to shoot a speeding bullet with another bullet. The B-25 holds its line. At 800 yards, the world inside the cockpit vanishes behind a curtain of muzzle flash. 8 streams of .50 caliber fire converge into a single rod of liquid light. This rod touches the sea, walks up the bow of the Ratio, and punches into the bridge. The effect is not an explosion. It is an erasure. The bridge structure disintegrates in a storm of glass, metal, and human tissue. The ship's steering is severed in the first second. Its command crew is annihilated in the second. The Ratio, still driving forward at 30 knots, begins a slow, dying turn into the path of its own convoy. A ghost ship commanded by corpses. The umbrella of steel has just been pierced by a lance of fire. And the strafers are not finished. They are just beginning their run. The strafer's run is a passage through hell measured in seconds. The pilot is a machine component, eyes fixed on a point just below the target ships, waterline, hands micro, correcting against turbulence kicked up by his own guns, the aircraft vibrating as if it will shake apart. The noise is apocalyptic, the roar of the engines, the jackhammer cacophony of the guns, the ping, zing of fragments striking the airframe. He flies through a forest of tracers. Japanese gunners, now overcoming their shock, pour fire into the approaching demons, but their geometry is fatally flawed. They are aiming at fast, moving targets coming from 0 degrees elevation. Most of their fire passes over the B-25s, creating a lethal ceiling for no one. To hit the strafer, a gunner must aim not ahead of it, but at the water in front of it and hope the ship's rise on a swell brings the gun to bear. It is an almost impossible shot. One B-25 takes a direct hit in the starboard engine. The plane slews violently to the right, but the pilot, Lieutenant Colonel True, does not break off. He continues his run, one engine dead, his aircraft dragging itself toward the transport Kyokusei Maru. His guns are still firing. His bullets stitch a line of punctures along the transport's flank before his wing clips a wave, and he cartwheels into the sea in a sheet of flame and spray. There is no parachute. His sacrifice is not in vain. The transport is wounded, and the next element is already inbound. The tactic is swarm and overwhelm. While the destroyers are fixated on the first wave, a second wave of strafers, mixed with a -20 Havocs also armed with forward-firing guns, sweeps in from the flanks. They target the transports directly. A soldier on the deck of the Tio Maru witnesses the approach. He later describes it not as an airplane attacking, but as a dragon vomiting a solid line of fire. The stream of bullets saws across clustered infantry on the deck, turns lifeboats into splinters, and walks into the engine room ventilators. Inside the transport, the world becomes a steel storm. Bullets penetrate the hull with the sound of 100 sledgehammers. They ricochet in the enclosed spaces, creating a whirlwind of fragments. They ignite fuel, detonate stacked munitions. A ship carrying over 1,000 men can be rendered a floating charnel house in less than 10 seconds of gunfire, without a single bomb being dropped. The Bismarck Sea is no longer a shipping lane. It is a bowl of chaos, filled with burning oil, sinking bows, and the screams of men in the water. Admiral Kimura, on the damaged Shirayuki, is faced with a command problem for which he has no training: how to defend against an enemy that refuses to fight by the rules of the sky. Admiral Kimura's command disintegrates not from a lack of courage, but from a failure of doctrine. His destroyers, masters of the night torpedo attack, are now blind, enraged beasts lashing out at phantoms. The elegant basket defense is in tatters. Ships turn independently to comb the tracks of non-existent torpedoes from the skip. Bombers, or to bring their broadsides to bear on strafers that are already gone, only to present their vulnerable beams to the next wave. Communication between ships breaks down in a storm of radio static, signal lamp obstructions, and pure, unadulterated panic. The convoy, once a disciplined formation, is now a confused mob of burning and sinking vessels, their wakes scribbling desperate, intersecting circles on the oil-slicked sea. The American strafers exploit the chaos with robotic precision. They have trained for this. The mop-up, A.B. Fay, its guns reloaded via frantic work by the navigator and bombardier in the tunnel behind the cockpit, makes a second pass. This time, it is not attacking a ship, but survivors. Lifeboats and rafts crowded with soldiers are raked with gunfire. This is not an act of sadism. It is cold, tactical logic. The mission is not to sink ships. The mission is to prevent the face division from reaching LAT. A soldier in the water is still a soldier who can be rescued. A soldier dead in the water is a statistic. High above, the P-Phase maintain their grim watch, diving on any destroyer that attempts to slow and rescue survivors. They enforce a rule of total annihilation. The Japanese destroyers are faced with an impossible choice: stop to save drowning men and be destroyed, or abandon their comrades to the sea and the strafing runs. Some choose the former. The destroyer Asashio, dead in the water after a strafing run crippled its engines, becomes a stationary target, a skip. Bombing B-17 places a 500-pound bomb directly into its ammunition magazine. The ship vanishes in a cataclysm of fire, leaving a boiling crater on the surface. By midday on the 2nd of March, the outcome is no longer in doubt. It is a question of scale. The sea is littered with wreckage and men clinging to it. The surviving destroyers, including Kimura's flagship Shirayuki, now with its forward guns silenced and bridge damaged, can only think of escape. They must break contact. They must run. But the strafers have one final, brutal lesson to impart. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The doctrine of maritime escape the high. Speed dashis also obsolete. An aircraft that flies at wave-top height can chase you down. Your wake is a highway leading straight to your stern. The hunt begins. The remaining Japanese destroyers, Shirayuki, Shikinami, and a handful of others, make their desperate turn north towards the sanctuary of Rabal's fighter cover and heavy anti-aircraft batteries. They push their engines to the emergency flank, throwing up great white curtains of wake. Speed is their last remaining weapon. It is a weapon rendered useless. The modified B-25s, lighter now, after expending thousands of rounds of ammunition, are faster, and they possess an altitude advantage of -50 feet. A destroyer making 34 knots is a lumbering behemoth to a pilot skimming the wavetops at 280. The strafers do not attack from the beam in a classic torpedo run. They attack from the rear quarter. They come up the ship's own wake, using it as a visual guide, hiding in the radar and visual blind spot created by the ship's superstructure. The first warning the aft gunners have is the same as before, a thunder that rises from the sea behind them. The attack on the fleeing Shirayuki is a clinical execution. Two B-25s approach from astern. Line abreast, the destroyer's aft 5-inch mount tries to swing around, but its arc is limited. The 25mm gunners on the fantail fire wildly, their tracers sailing harmlessly over the low-slung attackers. The 8-gun noses speak. Their fire converges not on the bridge but on the ship's sternum, the rudder assembly, and the propeller shafts. Armor-piercing rounds tear through the thin aft hull, severing hydraulic lines, jamming the rudder hard to port, and chewing into the high-speed turbines. The Shirayuki's sprint becomes an immediate, uncontrollable spiral. Black smoke belches from its ruptured aft decks. Simultaneously, another flight goes for the Shikinami. The result is the same. A ship designed to hunt submarines and aircraft is rendered a crawling, steering, crippled wreck by a weapons system that did not exist in the tactical manuals it carried. Admiral Kimura, wounded by strafing fire on his bridge, is forced to transfer his command via a perilous rope ladder to another damaged destroyer. The symbol of imperial authority, the flagship, is abandoned to its fate. It will sink slowly over hours, but it is already dead. The American pilots, low on fuel and ammunition, break off. Their work is done. They leave behind a tableau that defies contemporary understanding of naval combat. Not a single ship has been sunk by a traditional torpedo or a high-altitude bomb. An entire convoy, a division of troops, has been methodically dismantled by machine, gunfire delivered from an altitude so low it was previously considered suicidal. But for the men in the water, the battle is not over. It is about to enter its most horrific phase. Nightfall, the 2nd of March. The Bismarck Sea, under a moonless sky, becomes a vast black charnel ground. The oil fires have burned down to smoldering patches on the water, providing faint, hellish illumination. Around them, the survivors cling to wreckage, splintered beams, empty ammunition crates, the few lifeboats that escape the strafing. Over 3,000 men are in the water. The temperature is dropping. Sharks, drawn by the blood and thrashing, begin to circle. The surviving Japanese destroyers, Shikinami, Uranami, and Asagumo, are faced with a command catastrophe of soul-crushing magnitude. Their mission was to deliver an army. They've delivered it to the ocean floor. Their duty now is to rescue. But the American mandate of annihilation extends into the darkness. All through the night and into the next day, Allied aircraft maintain a relentless patrol over the disaster area. Pabi Catalinas, B-17s, and even returning B-25s fly over the flotsam. They drop not life rafts, but bombs and depth charges set to explode at shallow depth. They strafe the clusters of survivors. A destroyer attempting to stop and haul men aboard is immediately attacked by Skip, bombing B-17s, forcing it to abandon the rescue and flee. This is not a battle. It is a systemic extermination. The logic, from the Allied perspective, is irrefutable and merciless. Every soldier pulled from the water is a soldier who will fight tomorrow at Leh. The 5th Air Force has been given a unique opportunity to destroy an entire division after it has been embarked. They intend to complete the job. For the Japanese sailors and infantrymen in the water, the experience transcends the definition of warfare. It is a descent into primal terror. The concussions from depth charges rupture lungs and internal organs underwater. The strafing turns crowded rafts into abattoirs. Men drink salt water in their delirium. They watch friends be taken by sharks. They let go of the wreckage, choosing the quick silence of the deep over the prolonged agony. Admiral Kimura, from the bridge of the damaged Uranami, receives fragmentary reports of the slaughter. He is powerless. His weapons cannot reach the high-flying B-17s at night. His ships are damaged, low on fuel, and themselves vulnerable. The Imperial Navy's code of Bushido, which demands death before dishonor and the retrieval of the fallen, collides with the cold modern reality of total air supremacy. The code shatters. The 3rd of March, 0600 hours. A grim daylight reveals the full scope of the disaster. The Bismarck Sea is a 30-mile wide slick of oil, debris, and bodies. Of the 7 transports, none remain afloat. Of the 8 destroyers, 4 have been sunk. Shirayuki, Arashio, Asashio, and Tokitsuke's. The remaining 4 are crippled, burning, or fleeing, their hulls punctured by countless .50 caliber holes. The human cost is apocalyptic. Of the 6,900 soldiers of the 51st Division embarked, fewer than 1,200 will eventually be rescued, and many of those will die of wounds, burns, or exposure. Nearly all the senior officers are dead. The division has not just been defeated, it has been erased from the imperial order of battle before it fired a shot. In Rabaul, the news is met with stunned disbelief, then chilling silence. The defeat is not merely tactical, it is doctrinal. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The entire premise of Japanese naval logistics in the South Pacific, the secure daylight transit of powerful convoy ships, been proven a fatal illusion. The staff officers who planned Operation 81 are confronted with an unbearable truth. Their enemy has not simply developed a new weapon, they have invented a new dimension of warfare. For General George Kenney and the 5th Air Force, the victory is total. But the images haunting the returning air crews are not of triumph. Pilots speak in hollow tones of the meat grinder, of flying so low they saw the faces of Japanese gunners as their guns erased them, of the sea boiling with men and their subsequent orders to keep the pot stirred. They have achieved the impossible, but the method has scarred them. They have learned that air power, when applied with ruthless, focused brutality, can not just contest the sea, but dominate it. A single statistic echoes through Allied headquarters, and will soon rattle the halls of the Japanese Naval Ministry. The cost. The Allies lost Fei aircraft and Fei airmen. The Japanese lost an entire convoy, a division, and the unshakable confidence that had underpinned their strategy since Pearl Harbor. The exchange rate is not favorable, it is catastrophic, but for the Imperial Japanese Navy, the most dangerous revelation is still to come. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea is not an end, it is a blueprint. The blueprint is disseminated with cold efficiency. In workshops across Australia and New Guinea, the conversion of B phase accelerates from an experiment to a standardized production line. The strafer nose becomes a kit. The heretical modification is now doctrine. More squadrons are trained in the low-level attack profile, their tactics refined by the hard-won lessons of the Bismarck Sea. Always attack from multiple directions, never break off early. Target the escorts first to blind the convoy. The psychological impact on Japanese shipping is immediate and paralyzing. The Tokyo Express, once a reliable nocturnal shuttle, now finds no safety in daylight or darkness. Daylight brings the strafers. Darkness brings the radar, equipped skip bombers, and night fighting aircraft. The sea lanes around New Guinea and the Solomons are no longer supply lines. They are shooting galleries. Japanese naval commanders are trapped in a tactical prison of their own design. Their ships, optimized for fleet actions and night torpedo duels, are horrifically vulnerable to an attack profile that negates their speed, their torpedoes, and their anti-aircraft fire control. They can increase the number of anti-aircraft guns, but a ship's deck space is finite. They can add more escorts, but this only provides more targets for the swarming strafers. The only apparent solution is to not sail at all. Reinforcement and resupply forward garrisons, like Leh and Salamaua, slow to a trickle, then stop. Troops at the front begin to starve. Ammunition reserves dwindle. The initiative in the South Pacific, so long held by Japan, undergoes an irreversible transfer. In Tokyo, the Naval General Staff grapples with the reports. The loss of the ships is grave. The loss of the division is a strategic blow. But the loss of conceptual superiority is existential. They had believed the ocean was a Japanese domain. They now understand the Americans have lowered the battlefield to an altitude of 10 feet, and in doing so have made every ship, regardless of its size or mission, a target for obliteration. A desperate innovation is attempted: the construction of dedicated anti-aircraft vessels and the retrofitting of merchant ships with reinforced concrete and hundreds of machine guns. They are crude, last-ditch attempts to build a floating bunker that can survive the storm of fire. They are admissions of defeat. The Imperial Japanese Navy, the master of the decisive battle, has been reduced to designing fortresses that can hopefully endure a beating long enough to beach themselves. The fortress mentality is a contagion that weakens the entire Japanese defensive perimeter. Isolated garrisons, cut off from meaningful resupply, begin their slow, grim descent into what their own officers will term the Green Hell. At Lassi and Salamoa, the troops meant to be reinforced by the lost convoy now face the advancing Australians and Americans with empty stomachs and dwindling cartridge belts. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea did not just sink ships, it strategically starved an army. Allied commanders, sensing the profound shift, push harder. The modified B phase, now rolling off modification lines in ever greater numbers, become the spearhead of a new American way of war. Tactical air interdiction raised to the level of strategic paralysis. They are used to shatter barges attempting coastal runs, to obliterate supply dumps on beaches, to strafe airfields and pin aircraft on the ground. The 8-gun nose becomes the symbol of Allied air supremacy in the theater blunt. Brutal tool that turns the intricate Japanese logistical web into kindling. For the Japanese soldier on the ground, the sound of a B-phase radial engines, even at high altitude, triggers a different kind of fear. It is no longer just the fear of bombs, it is the fear of the gun, run. The fear of an aircraft that can and will descend to treetop level to methodically dismantle his position with surgical, horrifying precision. Morale, once founded on the belief in imperial invincibility and the sanctity of the fighting spirit, begins to fracture under the constant, demoralizing weight of material annihilation. In Washington and Tokyo, the battle is analyzed through different lenses. To the Allies, it is a validation of technical ingenuity and aggressive tactical thinking. To the Japanese High Command, it is a harrowing preview. If medium bombers can be turned into ship killers, what other technological nightmares might the Americans be preparing? The psychological blow fuels a growing corrosive anxiety within the Imperial command structure, fear that they are not just losing battles, but losing the fundamental arms race of warfare itself. The Bismarck Sea proves that the Americans are not merely copying Japanese tactics or matching their courage. They are re-engineering the physics of the conflict. And for an empire whose strategy relied on a short victorious war decided by a single glorious fleet engagement, this represents a threat more terrifying than the loss of any single division or convoy. It is the threat of irrelevance. The legacy of the Bismarck Sea is carved not in monuments, but in the cold, subsequent silence of the shipping lanes. By mid-1943, large-scale Japanese convoy operations in the Southwest Pacific area ceased to exist. The cost of trying has been mathematically proven to be infinite. The Imperial Navy is forced to resort to submarines, clandestine barges, and hazardous coastal dachases, pathetic trickle utterly insufficient to sustain a far-flung empire. The psychological scar on the Japanese Naval Officer Corps is permanent. A generation of commanders who came of age at Pearl Harbor and the Java Sea now must fight a war where the sea itself is the enemy's domain. The confidence that allowed Admiral Kimura to sail proudly into the Bismarck Sea is extinguished, replaced by a pervasive, gnawing dread of the horizon. Every low cloud, every squall line now might conceal the mechanical demons with the 8-gun noses. For the Allied air crews, the victory brings a somber, uncomfortable clarity. They have achieved a level of destructive efficiency that borders on the clinical. The post-action reports are filled not with exuberance, but with stark, numerical assessments of tonnage sunk and casualties inflicted. The men who flew the strafers are hailed as heroes, but in the quiet of their own quarters, they remember the water turned red, the rafts disintegrating under their guns. They have learned that absolute air supremacy, once achieved, carries a moral weight as heavy as any bomb. The battle also signals a fundamental shift in American industrial and tactical philosophy. It is the triumph of the field modification, The quick and dirty solution born of frontline necessity over ponderous stateside design committees. Men like Pappy Gunn and visionaries like Kinney demonstrated that will and welding torches could reshape a war faster than any bureaucracy. This agile, innovative mindset would become a hallmark of the American war machine, from the hedgerow cutters of Normandy to the island-hopping campaigns still to come. But on the 4th of March, 1943, as the last survivors are pulled from the oil-slicked water and the final burning hulk slips beneath the waves, only one fact matters in the headquarters in Tokyo and Brisbane. The equation of power in the Pacific has been permanently altered. The surface fleet is no longer queen of the ocean. A new king has been crowned, flying at 50 feet. The Bismarck Sea is not an isolated event. It is a puncture wound in the hull of Japanese imperial ambition. The bloodletting never stops. The modified B-25s and their descendants hunt across the Pacific, from the coast of China to the waters off the Philippines. The tactic of low-level strafing and skip bombing becomes a refined art, a standard chapter in the operational manuals of the Allied air forces. For the soldiers and sailors of Japan, the lesson is written in steel and fire. There is no safe space, not the open ocean, not the crowded deck, not the command bridge. The enemy's reach has been extended downward, from the stratosphere to the wave-tops, and with it comes a terrifying intimacy of destruction. The overconfidence that sailed with Admiral Kimura on the 1st of March 1943 is a ghost. It haunts every subsequent convoy operation, forcing caution where aggression was once doctrine, fostering hesitation where there was once certainty. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea did more than decimate a convoy. It planted a seed of doubt in the mind of the Imperial Japanese Navy that would never be uprooted. From this point forward, they are not just fighting an enemy, they are fighting the inevitable conclusion of their own strategic blindness. In the end, the true victory was not measured in tonnage sunk or divisions destroyed. It was measured in freedom of movement stolen from one empire and granted to another. The Allies now own the daylight and contest the night. The path to Tokyo, once guarded by invincible fleets, is now exposed. Its guardians paralyzed by the memory of a battle where the very rules of engagement were rewritten in mid-air. The men who flew the strafers, who welded the guns, who conceived the heresy, proved a fundamental truth of modern warfare. There is no fortress so strong that ingenuity cannot reduce it to rubble, and no doctrine so sacred that desperation cannot bend it into a weapon. The waters of the Bismarck Sea are quiet now. But the echo of those 8 gun noses, the sound of a paradigm shattering, reverberates through the remainder of the war and through the very soul of naval history. It is the sound of inevitability. It is the sound of an empire learning too late that the past is no defense against a future forged in desperation and fire. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more.